Today we're going to create a landscape using lines. So in your landscape, we're going to create several different lines that make it look like our landscape is moving farther into the background. So I'm going to start at the bottom of my page with a pencil for my first line. I'm making it slightly curvy. Maybe my next line has a little bit bigger hills. Hills are sort of curved lines in nature. You could also draw some lines that are more straight. Maybe they have some plateaus. Plateaus are kind of like hills, but they have a flat top. I really like the way that plateau looks. Maybe on this next one I'll add a hill, another plateau, and maybe for my last line, maybe I'll do some mountains. Mountains are a little bit pointier. It's okay to overlap your lines a little bit if you want to, because we noticed that Paul Klee overlapped his lines slightly as well. Now you can also add some bushes. I'm going to be like Paul Klee and use just some straight lines for my bushes to kind of fill in some of these empty spots. Now our landscape is kind of simple. We don't have a lot of details. There's no animals, there's no houses. We just want to keep it kind of simple with some lines. Now, after you have your lines the way you like them and you have the correct number of lines, we're going to get some black paint and a little piece of square rectangular mat board. We're going to use this mat board to print black paint on top of our lines. Now, when you do this step, be careful because this paint is not washable. Usually in art class our paint is always washable, but we have to use a special kind of paint for this, and it is not washable, so be very careful. I'm going to start at the top of my picture and work my way down. So I'm just going to dip the corner of my mat board into the paint. I'm not scooping it, I'm just dipping it once, and then I'm going to tap the paint over my lines. And the more times you tap, the paint kind of starts to wear out and you get kind of a little bit of a lighter line. I like the way that looks. Kind of looks a little bit like Paul Klee's pen and ink drawings. But if you want it to be a little darker, just dip it again and get some more paint. Now my mountain here, I'm going to use a shorter side of my mat board so that I can maybe get those mountains a little bit pointier. But if your lines aren't perfect, don't worry about it. This is supposed to be kind of a slightly, I don't want to say messy, let's say rough line. Because we know that art doesn't always have to be super perfect. And this art project is a really good example of that. So I'm just going to keep on bouncing and tapping my paint on top of my plateaus and mountains until all of my pencil lines have been outlined. Now when all of your lines are outlined, you can choose to add a little bit of texture to some of your mountains. So sometimes on the sides, I like to just add a few extra lines. Looks kind of like a texture, maybe like a shadow, just a little bit. Not too much. We still want some areas to be blank, but some areas can have a little bit of texture. I'm kind of letting my lines get really light if I want the textures to not show up too much. And I might add just a few more little plants. I'm making my plants in the background smaller than my plants that are in the foreground. That way it looks like this plant is farther away than this plant. And maybe just a few more little details, maybe a little shadow under my plants. Just a little bit with some of the leftover paint. Maybe I want to get just a tiny bit of paint. Sometimes I like to make my sun stand out a little bit with some extra lines. And when your lines are all finished, you are going to very gently rest your mat board on your paint palette. Use your towel to wipe off your hands, and your project is complete.